Hello, math friends. It's Miss Mathematics here, and today we're going to be talking about integer division using red and yellow counters. So we're going to begin by warming up by talking about opposite groups. Now remember, with these counters, yellow represents positive and red represents negative. So let's talk about an opposite group of -4. So an opposite group of -4 would be +4. Now, what about if we have two opposite groups of +2? So, two groups of +2 is 4, but an opposite of that is -4. So, keep that in mind as we move through this lesson. So, let's try. With your counters, you're going to model 4 into two groups. So, here we have 4 positives, and we're going to separate them into two groups. So we keep going until we don't have any more to separate. Notice how we have 2 positives in each group. Now we're going to model 4 into opposite groups. So here are our two groups. We're dividing those 4 positives into these two groups, but it's opposite, so it's going to be red or negative. Now let's try modeling -4 into two groups. Here's our two groups. Going one by one, dividing it out. Notice how we have -2 in each group. Now we're going to do -4 into two opposite groups. So divide them into those two groups, but change them to be the opposite, which would be +2 in each group. Now, 6 divided into two groups. Try it with me. Here we have our +6. We're going to divide them up into two groups. How many do we have in each group? +3. Now, what about 6 divided into two opposite groups? So here we have our +6. We're going to divide them into those two groups. But remember, it's going to be an opposite group, so it's going to be negative. We're going to use those red counters. So 6 divided into two opposite groups is -3. How about -6 divided into two groups? So we start with our -6 here, and we're going to divide them into two equal groups. How many do we have in each group? -3. -6 divided by 2 is -3. How about -6 into two opposite groups? Here we have our -6. We're dividing it out into two groups. But remember, it's going to be opposite. So instead of negative, it's going to be positive. How many each group? +3. 8 divided by two groups. Here we have our +8. We're dividing it into two groups. How many in each group? +4. How about 8 divided by -2 groups? So the opposite groups. -2 groups would be the opposite of two groups. How many in each group? -4. So 8 divided by -2 is -4. How about -8 divided into two groups? How many is in each group? -4. -8 divided by -2 groups. So opposite two groups. So instead of keeping our negatives, we're going to change them into positive because they're opposite groups. How many in each group? +4. -8 divided by -2, +4. All right, let's just look at straight division. 9 divided by 3. We're taking our +9 and we're dividing them into three groups. Think about how many is going to be in each group. +3. How about 9 divided by -3? So instead of three groups, it's the opposite groups. Three opposite groups. So we have our +9 divided by -3 will be -3. -9 divided by 3. So we start with 9 negatives and we're dividing them into three equal groups. Think about how many is going to be in each group. -3. -9 divided by -3. So -9 divided into three opposite groups. So there we have positive 3. So as we cool down this lesson, I want you to take a look at this. I want you to notice and wonder. What are you noticing? What are you wondering? What kind of rules can you make? What connections can you make? As always, thank you so much for watching. I'm Miss Mathematics. I'll see you next time, math friends.